we have a friend flying around. I hope it finds its way out. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to Green Gulch. No?
I think the mic, yeah. May I? Sure.
How's that? Better? Well, we'll see how this mic functions with me. Good morning again and welcome those of you who are streaming the Dharma Talk and those of you who've come to Green Gulch on this beautiful spring day. A Green Gulch spring day, foggy, cold, chilly. This morning, I wanted to talk about with you a teaching that's put forward in a number of places, but in one place is the Avatamsaka Sutra, the flower ornament scripture or flower garland scripture. And this scripture I'm studying with a group of people led by Tenshin Roshi. And he's beginning to offer this more widely, I think, in different venues. The scripture itself is very long, it's a large scripture, and it basically expresses the mind of Buddha, and the mind of Buddha helping sentient beings, manifesting and helping sentient beings. However, it does so in ways that are very challenging, I'm finding. So I'm just going to take one small teaching from this huge scripture that was also taken as a koan in our koan collection, the Book of Serenity, case 67, takes this teaching, just a paragraph, and puts that forth for us as a koan, as something to, out of compassion, for us to turn and look at and learn by heart. So before I enter that, I just wanted to say a few words about the last 6 months or so. I was invited to lead the Tassajara practice period Zen Mountain Center and have been gone from Green Gulch. I was gone for a full 3 months plus some vacation time. So I haven't given a talk here since November, December of last year. In the Tassajara practice period, the theme of the practice period through studying a particular chapter of a work, the chapter was of Dogen's, was called Bowing to the Marrow. And so the practice period, we looked at the practice of bowing itself and practice bowing. There was the offering of the possibility of doing 108 bows every morning before Zazen, which lots of people took up as a practice, either coming to the Zendo before the wake-up bell, or doing it in their cabins, or if not early in the morning, later in the day. So we practiced 108 bows, and there were many teaching stories about bowing and the practice of bowing and the importance of bowing. Which I wanted to say a few words about as well. And just briefly, coming back from Tassajara in April, I took some time visiting family. And during that time, while I was away, I got a phone call from my son about my husband, Steve Weintraub, who had been in a serious bicycle accident in West Marin near Olima. And I was in Vermont. I was on the East Coast, or not coast, but far away. And the first thing my son said was, Dad's not going to die. And then just hearing those words, it was like, okay, I'm ready. Tell me. And as Steve describes it, it was like a hair's breadth deviation while he was riding the bicycle. He was on a route he's done many times, Green Gulch to Point Reyes and back. Coming down near Olima, this wonderful hill, from how he tells it is, he was going too fast, but just a little too fast. And when the curve came, he wasn't able to make the turn and went off the road. And then through the kindness of strangers, people who were driving and saw it, people stopped. The paramedics came, the fire department, police department, and he was taken to Olima and helicoptered to the trauma center in Walnut Creek in the East Bay, about an hour and a half from Green Gulch, with punctured lung and broken ribs, broken clavicle, fractured vertebrae, and just and no head injury and nothing that he couldn't recover from. So that experience of hearing the news, being far away, and traveling back, not that I could do anything besides be present, was, practicing with that, which for all of us, you all probably have your own story of getting a phone call or a doctor's diagnosis or coming upon an accident. This is our life together. This is our shared life. Yes, I know you want to go out. I wonder if should we open more doors? I don't know what will be helpful. Come. Anyway, so there's a poem I wanted to recite, kind of about the practice of meeting whatever comes. And Steve was very present. He didn't get involved in why me and everything had to stop, all our vacation plans and his work and my work, and no like regrets or just what's next? How do we meet this? So this is a poem by Dogen, which seemed very apt for me. And also for this season. The bright green color of the peach and plum trees, so shining and lustrous, manifesting in these very branches the same spring of hundreds of generations. It is foolish to despise what is close by, or to value something that is far away. Right now, remove all doubts by seeing what you see and hearing what you hear. I'm going to read it again. I used to be able to recite it, but the bright green color of the peach and plum trees, so shining and lustrous, manifesting in these very branches the same spring of hundreds of generations. It is foolish to despise what is close by or to value something far away. Right now, remove all doubts by seeing what you see and hearing what you hear. So I find that a kind of wonderful admonition or practice, teaching for not just everyday life, but our Zazen practice, of course, and all of our encounters, all of our activities. This despising what's close by, and grass is always greener, and I wish it wasn't, and why me? And, you know, I have the word slug, or all of that can be just right now. Just see what you see and hear what you hear, and meet and accord with the conditions of your life, whatever is being manifesting and being offered. So I really felt Steve practiced in that way, just meeting the situation and no wasting time with poor me or denigrating, I'm so stupid, or things that people sometimes do. And just to let you know, he's doing great. He's recovering slowly. Slowly, it's going to take months probably, but he can do daily activities. He started driving and taking down the compost and, you know, daily life. So it's, but for a while there was, you know, there was, he needed a lot of support. So just now we chanted three times a verse, or a gatha. In Sanskrit, verse is gatha, G-A-T-H-A, gatha. And in the gatha, there's probably, for some of you know, but some words you may not know what they are. One word is tathagata, and another word is kalpa. So in this verse is, and we're doing it 3 times now, which is a new practice, helps us to focus on the Dharma words that are coming through whoever the speaker is that day, or the Dharma words that are coming through you and occurring for you and rising up for you. Because each one of you is having your own unique experience, your own unique meeting with these words, and also your own bodies and this room and this bird. So in the Gatha, we say an unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect Dharma. And I don't think that's that each person who speaks here has, you know, some ultra perfect understanding or way of teaching or anything. It's the Dharma itself is unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect. And it's rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. And this reminds me of different sutras that measure things in ways that are beyond our beyond our ken, outside of our ability. And a kalpa, just to tell you if you don't know, is the time it takes for 100-mile high iron mountain, 100 yojanas, maybe some measurement, but 100 miles, let's say, high iron mountain, that once every 100 years, a little bird, maybe this bird, flies by with a piece of silk in its mouth and runs it across the top of the mountain. How long it takes for that mountain to be worn down to the ground is one kalpa. So, our mind begins to kind of reel, it's like we can't imagine it, but we also can't imagine really how far away the galaxies are in the sun even, or, right? We can imagine it, but it's kind of beyond our ability to grasp and hold it conceptually. So the Dharma is rarely met within 100,000 million kalpas. Wow. And then having it to see and listen to. So having this chance to hear the teaching. And not just hear, but to remember. So it comes in through the ears, or if we're reading, through the eyes. And then we remember, we reflect and turn it around. These are different kinds of wisdom: hearing, reflecting on, or remembering, having it to see and listen to, remember and accept. And then there's a vow at the end, which all of you who chanted said, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. And the Tathagata, that word, Sanskrit, means the thus come one. It's an epithet. It's one of the titles, or one of the names of respect and praise for the Buddha, is Tathagata. And it comes from the Sanskrit tatata, which is thus come and thus go. So this is another name for the Buddha, or Buddha nature, you could say, even, or suchness, or thusness, the thus come one, the Tathagata. So that brings me to this koan 67 in the Book of Serenity. And the koan takes this paragraph, as I said before, from the Avatamsaka Sutra, and puts forth this teaching. It's, those of you who have studied koans or read them, often there's a dialogue. There can be a dialogue with a teacher. There can be, an anecdote, a story, or a teaching from scripture or sutras. So koans, as the case for a koan can be a lot of different things. It doesn't have to always be these dialogues, either short or long. It can be a pithy saying. In this case, it's from the Avatamsaka Sutra. And I'll read the case. The flower ornament scripture says, and this is the Buddha speaking, this is a chance to hear the utmost right and perfect teaching, really rarely heard, as an encouragement to your whole life. Are you ready? I now see all sentient beings everywhere fully possess the wisdom and virtues of the enlightened ones. But because of false conceptions and error and attachments, they do not realize it. That's the case. And that's the teaching. So this is the Buddha. And the Buddha says this in a couple different places. In the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, it said that he said something like this, not in English, of course, upon awakening under the Bodhi tree. Marvelous, marvelous, wonderful, wonderful. All beings and the great earth are completely and thoroughly enlightened. That was his enlightenment. That included all of us and the great earth, except for their delusions and illusions. They don't realize it. So that's this koan, this teaching for us. And I'm going to read it again. I now see all sentient beings everywhere. This is, you might say, oh, no, you can't mean so-and-so because, or, we might begin to discriminate and pick and choose and gauge who's, no. This teaching is all beings. I now see all sentient beings everywhere fully possess the wisdom and virtues of the enlightened ones. But because of false conceptions and attachments, they do not realize it. So this is the Book of Serenity, pulling this paragraph out of the Avatamsaka Sutra. So in the Avatamsaka Sutra, I found the place where they drew that from. It's in chapter 37 called Manifestation of Buddha. And before I read that, because I don't want to just do lots of reading, I wanted to say something more about what we studied in Tassajara, which was the importance of bowing and what that practice, how that practice supports our practice of sitting, our practice of wisdom and compassion. There's a quote from Suzuki Roshi, Zen Center's founder, who says, someone asked, and there often is resistance to bowing when you're first introduced to it. If you come for Zazen instruction and you're shown, we bow to the cushion and away, we bow all in a practice place. There's many, many opportunities for bowing. There's altars that allow us to stop and show respect for the practices of everyday life in front of the bathhouse, bathrooms, at the kitchen altar, then of course in the meditation hall. And also when you go to speak with someone, there's bowing, which expresses one's respect, one's gratitude. And Suzuki Roshi, when asked about bowing, said, I think the person said, why do we bow to the Buddha? And he said, because there is no Buddha, we bow to the Buddha, which I think baffled the person probably, I'm not sure. What was Suzuki Roshi pointing to or expressing? So this teaching from the Avatamsaka Sutra that I now see that all beings everywhere, sentient beings everywhere, are completely endowed with the wisdom of the enlightened ones, meaning There's no sentient beings and Buddhas are not two, except for these attachments and conceptions. They don't realize it, but it's not that it's not true. So when we bow to Buddha, and I want to say something about that bowing, there's a verse that expresses this that was given probably to Dogen from, Dogen is the founder of this school in Japan, whose teacher was in China. And that teacher gave him a verse, which is translated different ways. But during this practice period at Tassajara, when I was doing the 108 bows every morning, I would also do this bowing gata, this verse. And this is the verse: the one who is bowing, the one who is bowed to, their nature, no nature. My body, others' bodies, not two. Plunging into the inexhaustible vow with a V, living in harmony with all. So this is a bowing verse where right there, while you're bowing to another person or a practice figure, we have the wonderful Bodhisattva of compassion, Jizo Bodhisattva, the tall one behind me. And right behind me, I'm sorry, my back is to these practice figures, is Tara Buddha, who's also a compassion figure, a green Tara, who's fast acting. You can call for help. When you bow to, let's say, a practice figure or your neighbor, or bowing to your cushion, or into the room when you come in, the one who is bowing, the one who is bowed to, their nature, no nature, meaning no separate, objectifiable phenomena here. Their nature, there's no separate self. There's just a Buddha nature, interconnectedness, thusness, Tathagata, the thus come one, whatever form that's taking. So the one who is bowing, the one who is bowed to, their nature, no nature. That no is kind of wisdom speak. You know, it's the kind of, when you put no, often it means no separateness, or the teaching of interconnectedness or emptiness. No, something out there. So the one who is bowing, the one who is bowed to, their nature, no nature. My body, others' bodies, not two. It's a very strict and difficult teaching, and kind of amazing teaching. Who I'm bowing to is not separate from me. Whether it's a being or a practice figure or a sentient being of all kinds, like this bird. Did it just go out? No. I heard it calling. My body, others' bodies, not two. So this, to me, this practice of bowing also works with our conceptions, these false conceptions and attachments, like to I, me, and mine, and possessions and stuff and fame and gain and all the attachments. In this koan, it's saying all sentient beings, without exception, have the wisdom of the Buddhas, except they don't realize it. How come? Because there's attachments And false conceptions, the basic false conception is separateness. I'm separate rather than I am completely interdependent with all beings, past, present, and future. These are very basic Buddhist teachings that we've maybe heard many, many times. And somehow noting that in our bowing, my body, others' bodies, not two. And then the last line is plunging into the inexhaustible vow. And for many years, I have trouble hearing the difference between B's and V's. So I thought it was plunging into the inexhaustible vow, since it was a bowing verse, but no, it's the inexhaustible vow, living in harmony with all. And that inexhaustible vow is the Bodhisattva vow to live for the benefit of beings, which are not separate from us. So we're included even. And living in harmony with all beings. That doesn't mean complacency, living in harmony. It means according with conditions and being a person of suchness or a person of thusness. I wanted to say a little bit more about this word thusness or suchness. Is the Tathagata. So in the Avatamsaka Sutra and commentary on it, the word Buddha itself in the sutra is commonly used for thusness or suchness or the reality rather than a specific Shakyamuni Buddha who taught. And it's more the reality body of the Buddha or thusness, suchness. And this reality body of the Buddha, this suchness, manifests in a way for each sentient being in a way that's according to their unique breeze of reality. They're unique. Each of us are on the path and are unique. We share many, many things, and we also have a unique past, present, future karmic consciousness. And so this reality body of the Buddha and the teachings take the forms that we can receive according to where we are right this minute, what's going on with us. And, you know, coming out of a Dharma talk, sometimes people say, oh, not all the time, but sometimes it's wonderful. People say, oh, that was such a wonderful talk. And I always want to know, what was it that you found wonderful or that was useful? And they'll pick out something that I can't even remember saying. It was like not the focus. It wasn't part of what I was thinking was the main kind of topic. But there's something there that met them uniquely. This just occurred to me. I was leading a sesshin and I gave this talk. It was about the Lotus Sutra. And I had had a kind of insight actually to something, and I was bringing it forth it was like the 5th day of sesshin, the 7-day retreat, with a lot of like warmth and kind of, I guess, invested, maybe, come to think of it. But anyway, like really wanting to convey something. And then it was time for Q&A. And this person raised their hand after I'd given this, what I felt was really an important teaching, you know. They raised their hand and they said, are we allowed to have pink oryoki cloths? Oryoki is the ceremonial eating with nested bowls and these claws. We ask people to have white claws. Is it okay if we have pink Oryoki claws? And I remember feeling like, whoa, are we in the same Dharma talk kind of, because I had just like thought that something, had gotten passed on there. But anyway, so each person receives the teaching through the ears and eyes and body language, and uniquely what you need. And in the Lotus Sutra, the chapter on Dharma rain, where the rain comes down and covers the earth, the Dharma rain, and the shrubs and the trees and the grasses and the flowers, each takes what they need according to their own karmic life. So this, another name for this is skill in means, where the Tathagata, the person of suchness, meets people where they are. And this is really how the teaching is conveyed. It's not a one size fits all, actually, which sometimes looks like, well, that's contradicting, or I read this, but this looks. So we can ask who the Buddha was talking to, that this was the teaching that he gave. Thank you, kitchen. The kitchen is leaving. So I'll be closing in just a moment and opening for question and answers, but I just wanted to add something to this. In the Avatamsaka Sutra, the Buddha says again how one translation is wonderful, another is how strange. How strange, how it is that these sentient beings have the knowledge of the Buddha, but in their folly and confusion do not know it or perceive it. And then the Buddha says, I should teach them the way of the sages and cause them to forever shed deluded notions and attachments, so they can see in their own bodies the vast knowledge of Buddhas, no different from the Buddhas. So the Buddha having this, I now see that everyone, all sentient beings, are filled with the wisdom of the Buddhas, but don't realize it. Out of that comes this vow to the Bodhisattva vow, to save all beings, to bring beings into, to enter the Buddha's way, to help beings to enter the Buddha's way. This vow comes out of, rather than, oh, well, everybody, so they don't get it, but they really are, so I don't have to worry about it, because all beings already have the wisdom of the Buddha, so it's all done. But the Buddha sees that there's suffering. There's suffering because of not understanding these teachings and not realizing it and feeling separate, and the anxiety and the suffering of loss and the suffering of all the afflictions, jealousy and anger and greed and why me, pity, pitying oneself. And so the Buddha sees that and says, I will teach and help. This is the Buddha mind. And I think this is the mind of the Bodhisattva as well. This is the mind of a person of suchness. So I'm going to end with this. So one of our ancestors, the disciple of Dongshan Tozan, the founder of this school, once said, "You're trying to attain thusness, yet you already are a person of thusness. As you already are a person of thusness, why worry about thusness?" You could say suchness or thusness. And Dogen, who comments on many teachings in his chapter called Thusness, Imo in Japanese, he says, it means that one who aspires to suchness, and I would say everybody here, well, how come you're here? We aspire to live in accord with the way. One who aspires to experience thusness is immediately a person of thusness. And then, because of thusness, you arouse this boundless aspiration for enlightenment, which includes other beings and wanting to help other beings. And then Dogen says, how do I know that you're a person of thusness? You know it because you want to attain thusness. As you already have the face and the eye of a person of thusness, do not worry about thusness now. Even if you worry, it is thusness not to be worried about. So this, I now see all beings. All beings are persons of thusness. And how do we know? Because we want to practice. And that is not our own separate self. That wish, that aspiring to practice comes out of the whole interconnected web of thusness. So maybe the last thing was too much, sorry. So right now, if you'd like to stretch a little bit, stand up for a second, uncross your legs, whatever works for you, we will have a Q&A time. And that will last until 11:30, so just about 25 minutes or so. And your Valerian, our meditation hall head, will bring the mic to different people. Yes, thank you.
I'll try to stop around 11:20.
11:20?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. So we have just about 15 minutes for Q&A.
Feel free to remove your mask if you're asking a question.
Thank you for your talk.
Thank you.
So going on to your last statement, of course, this ignores the interdependence of all of us, but it seems that there are many sentient beings who do not aspire to thusness. So if you could speak to that.
Yes, I think that's for me, it's part of, except because of false conceptions, attachments, and all sorts of things, they don't realize their true nature, you know. So of course they don't aspire and are very involved in other kinds of endeavors, and partly you know, some of the main ones are fame and gain, right? And possessive, getting possessions for oneself and one's family. And so that will cloud, and, you know, people end up finding out it doesn't bring harmony. It doesn't bring happiness. There are other things that support those. So I think that's where it falls in for me. Thank you.
Would you pick the questioner, Linda?
Oh, I choose?
Yes,
Okay.
speaker's choice.
Okay, this person.
Thank you. I'm really curious about the delineation. We sometimes say all beings, and then sometimes we add sentient. And I'm just curious about what's the difference. It seems there's something
Yeah,
really important there.
thank you. I think, you know, sometimes if we're translating, sometimes there's the word living, it's translated as living beings, sentient beings, and sometimes just all being, like without the, so I think like in the full moon ceremony that we did just yesterday, was it yesterday? We say before all being, entering the, you know, merciful ocean, before all being. We don't say before all sentient beings. So that to me is more universal in some way. However, you see it interchangeable. Yeah. And then there's also the whole thing of insentient beings preaching the Dharma, which is a whole other teaching. Yeah. Thank you. Let's see. How about this person? Here comes the mic. Down here.
I was wondering if you could speak to something that seems to be a trap for humans a lot of the times of, I guess the ego trap of I'm going to help someone else. And then therefore you know, you're putting yourself sort of higher, even though there's the idea of, you're helping them to find something that's already in them. Just the idea of I'm cued into something that you don't have. How do you avoid that trap?
Thank you. That it is a trap. You're right. I think first of all, being aware of that. I'm the helper. I'm the one who's. I remember somebody saying to me, I'm the healer, you know. And then along with that came pride and being above and looking down. And, you know, that which is not a healing relationship, you know. I'm the helper, I'm the healer. It's like, please, could you go somewhere else? You know, it's like, so real help is my body, others' bodies, not to, and responding to what's needed, according with conditions, whatever it is. That's real help, but you can't even call it help. It's just, there's another koan where appropriate response, just the appropriate response. That's your effort rather than, yes, people get very attached to being the helper. And I was recently at a retreat or a day-long teaching for around old age it was for therapists, but I went to it. And they were talking about at the end of one's life, if you've been in the helping professions, a therapist or in medical, and what comes with that, and the kind of ego that gets in the way, and how good it feels to take care of others and all. And then you're not able to do that anymore. You're not, and then feeling useless or depressed, you know, because you're not the one anymore. So that also reveals how you were holding it all those years. So the trap, that verse, my body, others' bodies not to, and the compassion of like this is compassion, not I'm the one who's holding, but I meet you completely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me look at this. Okay, we're still good. Yes, Corey.
Hi, Linda.
Hi, Corey.
Thanks for your talk.
You're
It's
welcome.
good to see you up here. I have a question about this thing you quoted from Dogen about seeing what's here and
The poem.
yeah,
Yeah.
and hearing what's here and how that's an like a admonition when we're maybe having these stories come up about poor me.
Yeah.
And I think I'm kind of in this habit of maybe coming back to the raw experience when I have stories like that. And
Did you say coming back to the raw experience?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have one now, like today and yesterday, that it just keeps coming back. And it's almost like by going to this, like being fully in the present moment, it's almost like skipping over it or something.
Skipping over.
Skipping over this
Yeah.
story that keeps coming up. And so I feel some kind of conflict there, and I don't know how to
Yes.
practice with that.
Well, this poem about not despising what is near and longing for what is somewhere else, just open to what is going on right now. And it's a habit of mind, I think, to like grass is always greener. It's an old saying because human beings think in that way habitually, like a better apartment, a better partner, a better weather, a better or something. And and then especially if it's an illness or accident or we are in the habit of not opening to exactly what it is, but to be looking somewhere else. And I think our zazen actually is a great way to practice with just this breath, just this sound, just this whatever is coming up, and let it go. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. Those are that meets this habitual, familiar way of, often it can be like I'm victim, always. I'm always victim, which is a whole story that we pull out of our karmic consciousness and slap on whatever's going on. We can do it. I mean, we're able to do that. So the raw experience may be painful, and
I think it's not.
it's not painful.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like kind of when I just attend to what's here, I'm not engaging with the like emotional content of it, and there's some feeling like, oh, am I like detached or skipping over this
like a
thing.
like a spiritual bypass kind of thing. It's endless, isn't it? All the opportunities to practice hearing and seeing and awareness, just bare awareness of what's arising without grasping, without grasping. And maybe, one-on-one, we could talk more about what you're bringing up too.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, it is 11:17, so maybe we have room for one more. How many hands are there? I see 1, 2. Is there 3 over there? Okay. Yes.
Thank you so much for your talk.
You're welcome.
That was very lovely. And I'm really happy that your husband is healing so well. I was thinking about
Could you hold the mic
yeah. Hello. Sorry. I'm sorry.
horizontal?
I was thinking about what you were saying at the beginning when you were telling the story about your husband and that phone call and how we all have these moments or will have these moments like that. Because I've been thinking a lot about relationship and possession or attachment when it comes to loved ones, which, can be partners or family members, and feeling this kind of intense feeling of ownership or possession or over these people. And I know that that is very important for us to have these relationships and also learn lessons through these relationships. But I was wondering if you could speak of kind of how to, just kind of, I'm having trouble feeling what's the different line between the healthiness of these attachments and non-healthy attachments in this way.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I think the word attachment in psychological terms is very, very important. Secure attachments and the child having what their attachment style is and so forth. It's very, very important. And then you come to Buddhism and it's talking about, get rid of all attachments or not get rid, let go of. So it's kind of hard to have those come together in some ways sometimes. So having a relational field that's healthy and strong, and be it friends, family, chosen family, Sangha members, animals, the relational field for our well-being and the well-being of the world needs to be strong and well. However, grasping and clutching and cleaving and holding too tightly or tightly is doesn't take care of those relationships or the world, and is not in accord with the teachings of all beings without exception are of the nature to be sick, to grow old, to die, and to change. These are the 4, there's 5 actually, remembrances. I am of the nature to be ill. I can't escape from being ill. And the 4th one is everyone I know and all who I love are of the nature to change, meaning they will either die before or after me, but they will. I can't hold to anybody. And then the last one is my actions are my only belongings. They are the ground on which I stand. So out of that, how do we care for one another, knowing we share this? In this workshop about old age, he talked about memento mori, which is to remember we die. And in literature, Shakespeare, alas, poor Yorick, I knew him well, the skull in Hamlet, there's skull, memento mori, to remember that we will die, and everyone will. And Dogen actually, in this Person of Thusness, he says, the rosy cheeks is one translation. The other is the youthful look. Where is it now? Can you grasp it? And the same with all our loved ones. And so this is a practice, bearing that. The Buddha says, carrying that on your left shoulder. Death will come. The life force will be cut off, is a practice. And it counterintuitively makes everything so precious, all those loved ones. Because why? You're not taking them for granted for a second. This might be the last time you see them because of a hair's breadth deviation going over the yellow line or, off the road. We never know. So to actually be living with that is not depressing. It's more enlivening. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for your questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to everyone, but I've been admonished to end now. Okay, so we do a chant at the end, which dedicates our time together. And that's not just dedicating the words I spoke, but your efforts in listening and reflecting and turning the teachings and reviewing things in your own life that are responding to the teachings. So all of that is very positive energy. And our practice is not to hold on, but to give it to everybody in the 10 directions. Okay.